Hello and welcome to Leading Minds weekly podcast, where we interview entrepreneurs on a weekly basis dealing with different topics in and around mental health and how they impact entrepreneurs. Today, we've got a very special guest, very, very close friend of mine, John Ogah, CEO of My Free Course. How are you?
Not bad at all.
Good,
Thanks
good.
for having me on.
No problem. And we've also got my man, Courtney.
How are you doing, guys? Great to have you on the show, John.
Yeah, thank you.
So today we're going to be discussing one of the most important parts of a business, which is revenue generation and sales. And we're going to talk about different topics that contribute and link back to issues that can arise in and around mental health when you're under pressure to generate sales, under pressure to generate revenue. Can be a really, really tough time. Now, John, your background. Actually, let's start with when we met. So we met when we were working for an advertising agency about 10 years ago.
Yeah, 10
over 10 years ago. And now that was a heavy duty sales structure in that business.
That was one of the most, I guess, intense and challenging sales environments I've ever been in. And I've been in quite a few, and I'd probably say it was the most ruthless and fearful sales environment I've ever been in.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, we saw so many people walk in and out of that door. It was crazy. And you had people walk in and they were really good.
Yep.
They had the potential to be really good. But because of the pressure that they put on everybody to, what do you think? I think it was more in and around management, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so, because these guys didn't hire salespeople without a proven track record. So every salesperson that came in came from another company. They'd been top salesperson at another company, at a previous company, and they came in thinking that they'd hit the ground running because they knew sales.
Yep.
And I guess with the way they were managed, they weren't allowed or able to succeed because of it was literally from day one. It was hire and fire. It was, you know what, you've got to do X amount within the first week, within the first 2 weeks, within the first month to justify your seat. And basically, until you do that, you're losing money. So the pressure was on from day one.
I think it's unfortunate, I mean, a lot of people, when they go into running their own business, you're gonna only do it. I said no. Actually, about 80% of people do it based on something they've done before. Right. So as an example, when I was running my digital advertising agency, I know staff of mine that went on and set up their own agencies. So the journey to get to entrepreneurialism always tends to start somewhere where you turn around and say, right, you know what, I could do this better.
Yes. And I think, I'm not sure if you guys have read the E-Myth, and they talk about, someone going from knowing how to do a specific kind of job. Let's say you're a barista, for instance. I know how to make great coffee. And you go from that to saying, actually, I don't want to work for someone. I want to do it for myself. And you think that to run a business is to make great coffee. But it couldn't be further from the truth, because you've got to basically go from being a technician, someone who actually does the role, to being someone who manages, someone who deals with advertising, sales, management. And it's a totally different ballgame to being an employee.
And you link that back to, obviously, every single business has to have a sales function. Every single business has to generate revenue. Cash is king, right? Now, if we link that back to our experiences, and I've actually been in situations before where you're in such a volatile sales environment from the management level down. And then to be able to then take that mentality and go off on your own and say, actually, you know what, I've got to sell. Is there an argument to say that if you've been in that high-paced environment, actually it puts you in a better position when you're going off on your own?
There is, but there's two sides to that, right? If you can be self-motivated, because all these environments that we're talking about, they are very high pressure, very you've got to be able to drive yourself, be self-motivated to succeed in those environments. Now, the first thing you got to do when you start a business is go out and get money. It's as simple as that. But one thing I will say, and going back to that environment, it was very, very toxic, because we saw people who were basically in tears because
Yeah.
they were fired just before Christmas, or they were told that they had to do this in terms of bringing in numbers just before Christmas, and how it affected them mentally and their families. We'll never know. But I think if you can succeed in that environment, yes, it does give you a step up from driving that initial revenue. But it doesn't mean that you are going to have a long-term successful business, because it takes more than just the bringing in sales to have a successful business.
So let's just link it back to that experience. You were one of the top salespeople in that environment. Like, I mean, this guy was
I'll take it. I'll take it
on another level, right? Really inspirational. Really inspirational. What do you think made you succeed within that environment?
I'd probably say it was my background. So I came from, I moved to UK. My parents moved to UK when I was 6 years old, and I had trouble adjusting to life in the UK when I was, very young, being bullied and so on and so forth. But I remember going from my secondary school. By the way, I lived in a council estate. I went to probably the worst school in North London, which was actually closed down like a year after I'd left. But I left that. No. But I left that school with 2 GCSEs, and at that point, I could see the disappointment. Bearing in mind I come from an African background, and it was always kind of drilled in me. Okay, right, you study hard. My dad had an accounting background. You study hard, you get a good job, and this would happen. But in that environment, I wasn't able to, I guess, succeed from an academic point of view. And I left that school with 2 GCSEs, and I could see the disappointment in my dad's face. And from that day, as soon as school finished, I cut off everyone that I knew from that school, apart from one person that I'm in contact with now. I almost kind of reinvented myself and said, okay, right, this is what's happened before. I need to change that. I don't want my dad to be disappointed in me, but at the same time, I know I can do better. So I literally went to a sixth form, retook all my GCSEs, and I made lifelong friends that I still have now from that sixth form. And that gave me the knowledge and the belief in myself that, I could turn any situation around, but I also have to strive to be better, or I can strive to be more. And I think taking that into the jobs I've had, where I've always thought, okay, right, I approach it from a very logical point of view. Every job I've had, I've gone in, and bearing in mind they've mostly been sales jobs, I've gone in and said, okay, right, who's the top guy? What does that top guy have to do to get to where he is? So I'll give you an example. I worked in a telemarketing company. It was for Carphone Warehouse, but it was for their telesales department. I started off working in a store, built up to working telesales. As soon as I arrived there, I was told the top guy was earning 6 figures plus. I was like, what? From the phone? So, yeah, he's earning, he had a flash watch, was driving a brand new convertible BMW. I was like, okay, right, this is immense. So I literally spent, I think there was a point where the first 3 months I was just doing this, and I thought, look, enough is enough, and I can do better. So I asked my manager, can I have some time out? Because bearing in mind that each day you had to have a certain amount of calls, you had to have a certain amount of time on the phone, sales, selling insurance, selling telecoms, and so on and so forth. I actually asked, can I have some time out to sit with the top 10 salespeople in this environment? And he agreed. And I sat down, and what I realized was, yes, these people had perfected their sales pitches, their core skills, but actually they were no different. What they were very good at was time management. So they would sit in and say, okay, right, as soon as I get in, I'm going to prepare. After I prepare, this hour, this is what I need to do. This is what I need to, and they'd mark it down each hour. Not always physically, but subconsciously. So I just looked at it and said, okay, right, well, for me to be in the top 10, I need to do this many sales. This many sales means I need to be on the phone for this amount of time, this many times a month, a week, a day, an hour. So I'd get in an hour early, I'd prepare, and whilst my teams, I think this was a sales floor of maybe 120 people. And you'd be in pods of 7 or 8. So everyone would get there. They'd start talking, start having jokes and all the rest of it. I just took it as serious as possible and just said, okay, right, if I just break it down and I do what I need to do each hour and not go for my break until I've done what I need to do, by the end of the week, my figures will look great. By the end of the month, I could be there. Within, I think it was like 2.5 months, I was number 2. And I stayed consistently in the top 10 for I think 2.5 years.
Wow.
But all I did was just break it down and just be disciplined. I understood what I wanted to do, what I wanted to achieve, and how to achieve it. And the discipline kind of came in. So I've taken that into every job or career that I've had kind of since. And that's what happened with the sales environment where we met. Exactly the same process.
So preparation is key, isn't it?
Preparation is key. Understanding what your goals are, understanding where you want to go and how to get there. And it also comes down to, if you can see that other people have achieved that, you've got a blueprint.
What do you think then are the external factors? So we could all, I mean, Courtney, I know you're really regimented when it comes to your business. And on a daily basis, you know exactly what you're going to do, right? But what are we can only prepare as much as individuals. What do you think are the external factors that can potentially knock you off off your track, your road, even if you're properly prepared for everything?
Going by what both of you said so far, it's interesting because I think success leaves clues. Well, success does leave clues. And John's already gone into so many things that I would have said, oh, yeah. And as he was saying, I was going to say that. But I think what I have noticed in your journey, my journey, and other mentors that I've had is that the people that I have met that are the most successful have endured a lot of hardship from quite an early age, whether it be from yours essentially from birth, from where you were born, and then coming over to here. You have to kind of, David Goggins said it, you have to callous your mind from external factors. It's hard to do that. It's very hard to do that. And like John said, when you understand what you want and where you want to go and what is required of that, you're going to do it regardless. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. There might be some tears. There's days where you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah. But yeah. It's about having that discipline, that structure, and be like, no, I'm doing this for a reason. I'm doing it for a purpose. Doing X, Y, and Z is going to get me here. And leading back to what you said earlier about asking people for help. So you invested your time into those top 10 salespeople, and they gave you the knowledge, the tools, the support, and the roadmap, I guess, for you to be top 10 for the rest of your time there, and hence why you are in the position today. It's interesting.
I think, and I don't know if you guys agree with this. I think what you've touched on with regards to preparation and your own mental preparation going into a sales environment or having to generate revenue. There are always going to be external factors that are going to contribute. And it's how we manage and deal with those external factors that allow us then to progress forward. If people have come from a background where they've worked for somebody else, those external factors are really, really easily identifiable. What's it going to be? It's going to be your working environment, the working culture, management, company structure, etc., etc. Now, when you come out of that and you're an entrepreneur, you're working for yourself, you'd be naive to think that there's not going to be any external factors that aren't going to affect you. And it's how you deal with those external factors. That could be anything from family problems and issues, because you're still a father, a mother, et cetera, to, the economic environment. I mean, look over the last 12 months with COVID. Who would have thought you could prepare as much as you want, but you could never foresee that. No. And the mental challenges on a regular basis, on a daily basis, to be able to overcome those external factors and stay on your path, what you've prepared, is probably more difficult now than it ever has been.
I would agree with that. I'd also say that one of the biggest shifts from being an employee to self-employed is that self-starting ability. Now, when I look back at the scenarios of, when I was in that sales environment I mentioned earlier on, I was trying to get to a point where I could, I'd finished university. I had just had a business which basically folded because we couldn't support ourselves. And I remember times when I'd wake up in the middle of the night thinking, did I send that invoice off? Because if I didn't send it off, I'm going to get paid. And if I don't get paid, I've only got 2 weeks worth of money in the bank.
Yeah,
but
common problem.
It was just really, really stressful times. But going to where we met, I just got married to Becky, and we were about to have a child. And it got to the point where she was like, look, this business isn't working, go and get a job. And to be fair, I tried my hardest, and I couldn't really disagree with her. So I had an external reason, a strong external reason to put everything into, that role. But what you wouldn't hear is that 2 months in, being battered by managers, being called, where are you? What are you doing? What have you done this week? What have you done next week? The pressure was just immense. I remember sitting just before I went into a meeting, sat in my car, just thinking, what on earth am I doing? Like, is this really worth it? Is like, I can't do this. And having to almost build yourself up on a daily basis to go out and do the same thing over and over again, it's taxing.
So coming back to your current business, right? My Free Course. What is the difference between what you experienced there and the way you're doing things now? Because what you've just explained is exactly the same, no?
Well, I guess what's different is that depending on who you are in terms of sales, one of the biggest motivators, apart from your external motivators where, or things that are going on in your life or reasons why you need to earn money or feed your family or whatever it is, apart from that, in a sales environment, as you well know, one of the things is wanting to be the best or wanting to prove yourself amongst your peers and having that camaraderie and having that, okay, right, you're in a team, we're going to do something together. And that is a big, big drive apart from just the money. Because if you focus just on the money, it will only get you so far. But focusing on those additional things that I've mentioned, will help you. What's even harder is now going to a place where you've got teammates or business partners like I had, before COVID and last year, going to a place where you haven't got people around you that are necessarily pushing you in that same kind of direction. And you're having to be more of a self-starter. That's where you kind of lean on friends or people that understand the process you're going through. Other entrepreneurs, other business owners like yourselves. We've had many conversations about business and how you kind of get there.
Do you know, the funny thing is, right, when you're actually in that environment, when you're working for someone else, before you kind of take that step, you kind of think that's it. That bubble that you're in, that's all there is. I mean, you talking about sitting in your car and thinking, oh God, I can't do this. It's interesting why we don't feel we can't just walk away from that toxic environment. What is it that keeps us
I think
in
we're
that?
conditioned. I think we're conditioned from school.
Yeah.
Go to school, go to secondary school, get your GCSEs, go to college, then go to university, then get your job in whatever degree, because it's always a perfect world and you'll get the job that you've done your degree in. Get a house, wife, kids, marry. That's it. I didn't even hear the word entrepreneur in primary and secondary school.
No, they just don't.
Didn't exist.
It
It didn't exist.
No.
It didn't exist.
But here's the funny thing: if you ask most entrepreneurs, there'll be a point in their life where they started their entrepreneurial journey way before they even considered themselves an entrepreneur or a business owner.
We touched on this last.
I literally, I was just about to say this. So mine was, like you said about sitting in your car, the last office job I did, I was really good at it, but it was the environment was toxic, horrible. Management is just terrible. And I remember I was living on my own. Don't get me wrong, there were other external factors which made my life and my mindset definitely not the healthiest it could have been, but the job was probably the main catalyst. And I remember I went home once, a fully grown man, and I was in a house share, and I went into my room, and I remember I was obsessed with the program then, and I was watching it, and I just burst into tears on my own, and I was like, what is going on, man? This is not you. I don't cry, not because I think it's healthy to cry, but like this isn't you. And I guess that was my decision from then, because I thought, right, I'm going to go to Texas, I'm going to go see my dad for a month, and I'm coming back and I'm getting my personal training qualifications, and then I'm not looking back, and here we are.
That's it. I mean, everything we're talking about right now is going to resonate with people. And it's surprising that the three of us are sitting here, right? And we've all worked in toxic environments that have contributed to where we've ended up.
Yeah.
You know? And look, I mean, weighing it up, when you step out there and you turn around and say, right, you know what, I'm going to now run my own business. I think there's a large percentage of people that do that off the back of some kind of trauma. I think negativity pushes you on, can be a driver, but ultimately it comes down to how you manage it or how you look at it, right?
So I want to say that I think there's necessary trauma that you'll need in order for you to succeed in a certain area of life.
True. That's very true.
And some people won't like to hear that. And trauma is different for everyone. I think our experience is we've had quite severe trauma, you know, and do I regret anything that's happened to me? We can't. You can't live your life on hypotheticals, but someone might have had a lovely life and they've given a load of chunk of money, said start a business, and they start a business and they're going to experience some trauma. You know, it might not be as severe as ours. However, I would like to think that it would help that person grow and persevere through it in order for them to continue being successful.
Do you know what's interesting is where we used to work, where we met, I can think of so many people that have come out of that environment, and what have they done, John? They've gone up and they've gone off and they've set up their own businesses, and they've set up really, really successful businesses.
I can count about 12.
Yeah, exactly, right? And that was, I mean, it's hard. It's kind of. I mean, look, we're not berating anything. We're just talking about working environments, right? So it was a very toxic environment. And then to see friends, colleagues really thrive on their own once they've come out of that. And I don't think trauma is the wrong word to use, especially in that environment. It's cutthroat, you know?
But do you not think that, in a way, that environment kind of prepared you for an entrepreneurial journey? Because you know, you were in this environment, you were given a certain amount of freedom once you'd proved yourself and brought in a certain amount of revenue. You were almost told, okay, right, well, this is what we offer, this is what we do, to a certain degree. Now go out there and find business. And if you think about the churn rate was ridiculous. So I started off in a boot camp, and I think there were something like 15 people in the boot camp. By the time I'd reached my, 8 months, there was only 2 people left. So, and I'd probably say 2 or 3 of those went in the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, there's the same situation with me. I was the only one left out of 9. You know, it was really cutthroat. But again, I was asked this question earlier on, right? How does that environment contribute to you in a positive manner when you're going off on your own? Because case in point, 12 people you said you can count off the top of my head, and I'm sure there's more than that, are running very, very successful businesses off the back of that.
I think the resilience that it taught you, if you're going to take anything out of it, which I will, I think for me overall it was a positive environment, positive situation. Eventually, once I'd gone over the kind of hurdles, but it's interesting. We had a conversation the other day, and we talked about about how sales and the conditioning of sales impacts your personal life and the way you kind of view things, and almost never been satisfied. That's because you're anyone who's been in a long-term sales career will kind of resonate with this, because you're constantly told, okay, right, your last day, week, month, doesn't matter, it's what you've done now.
Well, it's not even that. I mean, it's to the extreme where you do a sale and you sit there, yeah, great, well done, this, that, and the other. 10 minutes later, where's the next one?
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? And so we were talking about this yesterday, right? And we were saying basically, you don't realize, especially when you've got a sales background and you've been in sales majority of your life, you're actually subconsciously conditioning yourself to never ever be satisfied with anything. Oh. And you can't sit back and enjoy the fact that you've just done this deal. It could be the biggest deal you've ever done. It will last about 5-10 minutes, and then, okay, what's next? Do you know what I mean? I mean, you gave a really good example of your own personal situation at the moment, right? Where you've bought a house and
Yes, so last year my goal was, okay, right, it's this was before COVID hit. Okay, right, can I at the end of the year get to a point, and I think sales people go through this quite often, where you kind of reassess what's going on, and in fact, most people they might set goals and say, okay, right, I want to do this year, and you write it down and you kind of put it away. You look at it regularly if you're someone like myself, and last year I think I said to myself, okay, right, I want to buy a house for my family, with a driveway, I want a gym, I want this, that, the other. And what was it? 6 months ago, I did just that, and you said to me, "Oh, yeah, congratulations!" And it's great. And I don't know, you just kind of it washes over you. You kind of like, okay, right, it's done. What? But it's not the. Could it be a bigger house? Could I have more of this?
You're instantly thinking about the next.
Yeah, without looking back and actually saying. 'Cause if I look back and I look at what I wrote, I did exactly what I said.
Yeah.
But it still hasn't caught up with me, and I'm kind of forward living or forward thinking as to say, okay, right, I'm thinking of the next thing, but not appreciating the now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting as well, because even though you're saying that, in my opinion, I don't look at that as you being ungrateful. I just think you're just underappreciating it.
I think it links back to conditioning, right? Conditioning of not being able to appreciate the now, and that is so important on so many levels, because putting sales to one side, in life, we're either regretting what we've done, and I'm talking from a negative mindset only. We're regretting what we've done, or we're anxious about what is about to happen. But what about now?
It's about being present, isn't it?
It's about being present and being able to turn around and say, do you know what? In your example, wow, I've literally just achieved my goals. Let me give myself a couple of weeks to enjoy what I've got here. But because of the background, I mean, even me saying it, a couple of weeks. Well, hold on a minute. That's a couple of weeks of selling.
I think of it from an entrepreneurial mindset. We have to blow our own trumpet.
Yeah.
Who else is going to blow it? Okay, our partners. You know, when I make a sale, I'll go down. If Becky's home, I'll go downstairs and we high five. You know, and she says well done. But when she's not there, I'm like, I might message her, or I'll be like, okay, cool, right, next one. It's just like, no, you just done something really good. You've just provided more support for your family and for yourself.
Absolutely.
Before we started being caught, we were having a conversation, and we were talking about last year and the pandemic and stuff. And I said, one of the calmest my mind has been, because my mind races a million miles an hour. And I watched your intro, and you talked about your thoughts have 1,000 thoughts. They have 1,000 thoughts, and it just goes on and on. And you overanalyze every single kind of aspect. And one of the most calming things I did last year was, leading up to my son's birthday, was I decided to draw a mural. So when I was younger, to channel my energy and and to I guess keep me grounded, I got into art, and that was something that I was really passionate about, and I still do some drawings now. And it just kind of makes me focus, and everything kind of stops, and I'm just focused on what I'm doing right now. And I took time out to draw a mural for my son, who's a big Star Wars fan. So this thing's like 6 foot by 5 foot. Wow. It's massive. Took me a couple of weeks to do, painting it and so on and so forth. But in the moments of doing that, was the calmest I'd been for years.
Do you think that's because when you were doing that before, it links back to feelings and memories before you went into your working environment, so that almost becomes your release, because it's conditioning to a certain degree, isn't it? Right? We're all products of our environment, right? And if you've spent 20 years in selling and you've conditioned yourself never to be satisfied, but then you can do something that takes you back to before that period, it allows you then to have that space and that mindset.
I never thought about it that way, but that's actually a very good point.
Because look, we're talking about conditioning a lot, right? And from my perspective, I think some of our outlooks on life, we don't ever sit there and think, why do I think like this about a particular situation? We just go with the emotion, right? And that emotion tends to lead to something in the future. It never links back to something now. Again, going back to gratitude and being able to, like you said, right? Being able to appreciate what we've got at that moment in time, we kind of need to recondition ourselves or reframe our minds to say, well, okay, look, as an entrepreneur, without money, without revenue, without sales, your business isn't going to function. That's a fact. We know that, right? But I think even in a situation where, and I've been in these situations where even that bringing that sale in doesn't plug the hole in the bucket because the bills are still to pay and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with sitting there and saying, well, actually, look, I've taken a product to market off my own back and somebody's bought it. I don't know. That's a massive thing. No, I mean, you've kind of done that off your own back.
Here's the funny thing, because we've both worked with SMEs for a number of years, right? And when I've seen an SME and a small business owner and they are not failing or struggling, it's because the way around they've done it is they've looked at it and said, okay, right, I'm just going to create this best product that anyone's ever seen, not get feedback on it, and then go out there and do basically trying to sell something that no one wants. Yeah. Right? Whereas thinking the other way around and saying, okay, right, can I sell the concept or can I sell a light version of this before I pour everything into it? But it's done the other way around. It doesn't make any sense.
Absolutely right. But then, any entrepreneur starting off in their journey can't be successful without passion. You must have passion. Now, unfortunately, there are people passionate about products and services that they've created that necessarily won't do that great in any market. And I think, again, it comes down to reframing and being able to sit there and think, actually, let me think about this the way that you've just said it, John, right? Is this product going to add value to the market, right? That's the first thing. And when it comes to sales, I might be right or wrong. It comes down to two things. People buy people. That's the first element. People always buy people before they buy the product. The second thing is taking a product to market. If you don't firmly believe in it and you're not passionate about it, and that passion doesn't come across, you're not going to sell anything. It doesn't matter. You could have the best product ever. You're not going to sell it if you're not passionate about it. So it comes back to, number one, do I really believe or do I really know that this product is going to make a difference or this service is going to make a difference in the first instance, and being able to then have full faith in the fact that that's going to happen. But then if you're in a position where you're not selling and you're struggling with selling your product, what are the steps that you take? What's the first step that you take to be able to then say, actually, you know what, this is my problem. My problem is not necessarily me. It's my product or my service that I'm taking to market.
But what John said straight away is, for me, is a thing that will not solve the issue completely, but fix a lot of it, is getting that feedback. Yeah. Having the humility to be like, guys, is this any good? It's not really, mate. This could work. This could change. You could change this. You could change this. Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to go away and I'm going to improve this product. I'm going to come back and you guys give me feedback again. 6 months later, they come back. It's awesome, man. Yeah. Go and sell it. Yeah. And it's something that, especially in my industry, people don't do enough. Not necessarily. I mean, we can give feedback forms and whatnot. You'll get to know whether you're very good at coaching people or not very, very quickly, by the results that you get physically and by how much or how little business you do have. But what you said about the passion, I think I'm going to say for me, it is going to be the most important thing, because I was on a consultation the other day with a client. I'd literally been speaking to her. I did a poll on a story. She voted, DM'd her, and we had a bit of rapport. Really, really nice girl. Had quite a few things in common. And I said, I think you should jump on a consultation with me. She's like, yeah, I should. We jumped on the call. First time I've been doing this 10 years now. I nearly cried on the consultation from what this woman was telling me. And
her background.
Her background, like that, and the words that were coming out of herself and how she thought about herself. And I was like, this is heartbreaking, man. If my daughter was saying these things about her, I'd be broken. I was like, I need to help this woman. And I didn't tell her straight away, but I told her a couple of days after. I was like, you nearly made me cry, man. And then we had loads of communication a few days up until her first week started. And just the me really being really responsive to her and just having that genuine passion.
Yeah.
She was like, I just want to. She's like, you've already helped me so much in these last couple of days. I want to thank you so much. She's like, I'm so excited for this journey to start, and she's 2 weeks in, doing amazing.
Because no matter what product and service you sell, if that passion doesn't, if that passion doesn't come out of you, and it doesn't resonate, you're not going to be able to achieve anything or move forward. Do you know what I mean? I mean, we've covered a few things with regards to conditioning, with regards to passion. Ultimately, the way I see this is, if you have a product and you're in a situation where you are struggling to sell, right? I think the first thing is to always constantly reassess your products and services, even if you're doing really, really well. I mean, I know that kind of contradicts a bit what we're saying about being satisfied with everything, but ultimately, if you have a product and service that you're extremely passionate about and it's constantly evolving and your passion is constantly evolving, your trajectory is going to be like this naturally.
It's about, why would you not want to improve?
Exactly, right? So there's going to be people out there that are struggling with generating revenue, that are struggling with generating sales. That links back to creating poor mental health because you're in an environment where you might be sitting there thinking, I don't know what to do. How do I get out of this?
If you actually think about it, you're conditioned to link money to your self-worth to a business.
Yes.
Which is crazy, and to success.
Yeah.
So if you're not selling and you're not bringing in revenue and earning money, then actually you're not very successful.
Yeah.
And you're seeing other people who are being in effect lauded for earning money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is in a real society, it's something that everyone would agree that it's not the right way to be.
Yeah.
But that's what a sales environment is.
Yeah.
And you then take that and you put it in an environment where you're working for yourself, and I guess, or working in a partnership. I'll give you an example. I was working with two friends, and I was the main sales guy within the business. Now, again, if I wasn't bringing in revenue, I looked at it as in, it's not just a reflection on me. It's I've got my family to support, but I've also got two other families, and the guy that we hired. Yeah. There's other families to support, and you start questioning yourself. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm a failure. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not good enough to be in the business because I can't bring in the revenue. And you tie almost your worth within the business to, and it goes back to the sales environment. You tie your worth to the business in your ability to generate revenue versus what else you bring to the business as a whole.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, because it's kind of that, what do you call it? Tunnel syndrome, right?
Vision.
Is you've got your role and so this is interesting. So you've obviously gone into a business. In that business, your responsibility is then revenue, right? It falls on your shoulders. Lifeblood of a business is revenue. A business doesn't function without it. However, your attributes go beyond that. But it's funny how then you kind of put yourself in that situation, took on that burden of responsibility. How did that affect you?
I'll be honest with you. It's my mental health was probably one of the lowest it had been, probably since we started, that sales career 10, 11 years ago. Because like I said, I put the burden of pressure on myself, but I also couldn't show that weakness to my business partners, because I felt that if I showed that weakness, that either they would think I wasn't good enough, or I'd kind of make it worse for myself to say that do you know what, it's true. If I believe that rightly or wrongly, and they believe it, then I'm no good.
Did you feel the need to have a conversation about that?
No. To a certain extent, yes and no, because I didn't want. You almost don't want people to think less of you.
Yeah.
You kind of carry on, and in sales, and I'm not sure if you're the same, but you would have listened to lots of sales gurus, and you got to grind, you got to keep pushing, and work while others sleep, and that kind of stuff, and you kind of buy into that to the point where I'm struggling to get up each morning to self-motivate myself and to get on the phone to my business partners and to other people around me to say, okay, right, I'm on it and I'm ready to do this, when inside I'm like,
So
I'm struggling.
those feelings, that feeling of negativity and affecting your mental health and stuff like that, would you say that they were in that situation only rooted within the fact that you weren't able to generate revenue for whatever reason, or do you think there's a deeper rooted issue that could affect people in that same situation?
I think a bit of both, because when I said I wasn't able to generate revenue, I was, but not
Yeah,
enough.
I'm not saying you're a total failure.
but not enough in my head. You know, because it's never enough, right? It's like, okay, right, I've done this, but I should have done more. It should be more. I should be bringing in more money. Like, why aren't I doing it? To the point where I think there were times when it was internally I felt, okay, right, maybe I'm not motivated enough. Maybe I need to pep myself up even more. And I never did tell anyone this, but it started off with, okay, right, do I go and get help? Do I seek help? And I thought the first port of call, let me go and see an NLP practitioner.
Yeah.
Because maybe it's a case of that, like, I'm not telling myself the right things. And if I just get some NLP, that would make me feel better. I saw an NLP practitioner for 3 months, every Wednesday. And I wouldn't tell the other guys. I'd say I was going for physio. Yeah. So I wouldn't tell anyone. And, my wife was very kind of supportive and just said, look, if this is what you want to do, see how it goes. Did it help me? Not really, to be honest with you, because, I told myself that these things that I was being taught, but the burning thing inside me that was telling me that I wasn't enough was still there, and it was getting louder and louder and louder.
Do you think being in that situation, do you think therapy is something that could have helped you get over it? And we discussed this last week, where therapy, I said it last week, is almost a swear word, right? It's dressed up in different things, coaching, etc., etc. Do you think, let's use the word coaching, do you think coaching would have helped you? And also, sorry mate, also, do you think coaching would have helped you? And do you think that ego can get in the way of going and asking for help?
Well, look, luckily for me, eventually I did seek out a therapist. I think it got to the point where my wife I was almost using my wife and my friends as sounding boards, and eventually it was like, that must get tiring for them, because it wasn't fair on them. So I did actually go and see a therapist in the end. But yeah, there is a certain amount of ego. If you think, I've been relatively successful in terms of the sales environment. So when I'd go into a sales floor, I'd be used to being one of the top guys. So you kind of think, okay, right, well, I've done this before. I should be able to do this. What's wrong? Why can't I do this? But you're taking yourself away from an environment where you've got someone to directly compare yourself to in a sales environment. To you on your own. Yeah. You're potentially the only one in that function within your business, or the main function within that business as a startup. Who do you compare yourself to? How do you compare, okay, right, how much revenue should I be bringing in apart from what the business sets out as a business goal to say, okay, right, we want to do X amount. And if we're not hitting that, then whose fault is that? Is that the product? Is that yourself?
Yeah. I think the dynamic is very different when you have that responsibility within a partnership, as opposed to on your own. And
Yes.
I'd go as far to say that when you're on your own, it's a lot easier to overcome your challenges with the right mindset than it is in a partnership. Because yes, you can potentially lean on your partners, but as you've just proven, I think on a regular basis, you're always questioning, am I bringing enough to the table? Because it is a responsibility. You have a responsibility.
And don't get me wrong, this isn't to say that my partners weren't supportive. My partners were very supportive. My partners, would tell me, look, don't worry, you're doing great, but you take it, and it comes down to your I was going to say your mental health, but it's what's inside you eating away, telling you you're not good enough. Yeah. But that doesn't just relate to kind of sales. It kind of creeps into other areas of your life, and it can be a downward spiral. And I listened to something that I think you said about, it's not just improving your mental health. It's your physical fitness. It's your diet. They're all interlinked.
So I was going to mention this when a few minutes ago, and I wanted to ask you, like, when you were at your worst, what what habits were you doing? What habits weren't you doing? Were you eating quite well? Were you getting enough sleep? Were you training? Was there other areas of your life that just for an hour or half an hour a day would give you a bit of peace and give you a bit of clarity and be like, calm down, John. Let's look at the situation for what it is. But also as well, what I've noticed is that we're always going to have these expectations of ourselves, but also accepting the emotions that you're having. It's almost like you didn't want to accept the way you were feeling because of your performance. You were more bothered about how you were performing at work rather than addressing the feelings that you're feeling right now. Why am I actually feeling like this? Because you say it's because I'm not bringing in enough money, and you think your partners might say this, but then you say that they were very supportive. So it's like, well, hold on, is it them? Is it the money, or is it actually me? And it's like, it's actually me.
Yeah.
100%. It's never anything to do with the external factors, right? It's the external factors can contribute, but it's how you perceive those external factors.
Absolutely.
So, going back to what you said, it's at the time, it's a snowball, right? You're starting to feel not so great about yourself, or you're starting to doubt yourself or have negative thoughts. Then all of a sudden you're not sleeping as well. Because you're not sleeping as well, you're eating badly, you're not exercising, and it all kind of like snowballs on top of each other.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, external factors will contribute, and I totally agree. It ultimately comes down to how we handle those external factors. We touched on this earlier on as well, right? Where working for someone and working for yourself, there will always be external factors at play, right? We talked about preparing yourself, knowing exactly what you're going to do, but you're still going to come across these hurdles, and you're still going to come across situations that you may not necessarily have the tools and skills to be able to say, I can overcome this straight away. But the challenge is always within yourself. It's always going to be within yourself. You're the one that is the only person that's going to be able to take that step and say, right, okay, you know what, my situation here, my problem here is that I'm not generating enough revenue. Okay, why am I not generating enough revenue? Is it my mindset? Is it my environment? Is it really external factors that I can't control? Is it my product? Is it the service that I'm selling? Do you know what? There's so many different factors, but like you just touched on, we become so internalized about the issue that we don't necessarily try and step out of that to say, well, okay, let me just analyze this situation, because it's head down, I'm responsible for revenue.
What you actually think is, you know what, if I only work harder,
that's right,
it will fix it.
That's right.
I'm not going to stop and actually look at the actual real underlying issue. I'm just going to, do you know what, it's head down.
Yeah.
Get stronger and just push on.
Yeah, that's it. But if you carry on doing the same thing over and over again, you're going to get the same result.
One thing is my go-to perspective changer, or hopeful perspective changer to all clients when they start a journey with me. I do say to them, I was like, will your environment inhibit you, or will it assist you in achieving what we're trying to achieve? But I use death. So we're all going to die. People in your family are going to die. You're going to die one day. And let's say a death row inmate, they know what day they're going to go, right? Do you think them knowing that day is going to help them any more prepare for that day?
Not. I wouldn't think so.
Oh, here's your last meal, John. What do you want? Do you want that steak and lobster? That's going to be the last thing on your mind. You're like, oh my God, my life's going to be taken today. And it's how we deal with those situations. I had one of my best friends, first time I coached him, 12-week transformation, the 2 weeks before he finished, his nan passed away, and in his arms, and he looked amazing. He looked incredible. 2 weeks left, and he came to me. We were just us two. I remember we was in the studio at the gym I worked at, and I just gave him a hug. We spoke about it, and I'm like, what are you gonna do? And I was like, look how hard you've worked. And he didn't come to me for an aesthetic goal. There was lots going on in his mental health which needed addressing, and that was the most important thing which we were working on. The physique is a byproduct. And I was like, you have worked incredibly hard, mate. You are a different person now. I was like, your nan is not coming back now. So if you go and undo all this hard work, you're feeling shit, right? Yeah. You're gonna make yourself feel even worse by throwing everything down the drain and letting your mental health and again your physical health deteriorate rapidly over a situation which you now can't control. You're controlling so many incredible variables right now which are making you a healthier and happier person. I think we stick with that, right?
Yeah.
And he did.
Yeah.
And looked amazing. We did a photo shoot. He's all over my Instagram and you know.
I mean, look, different types of trauma are going to hit us, some with a lot more severity than others. As an entrepreneur, and one of the reasons why we've set up Leading Minds is to be able to provide that support network for people that do go through that trauma, because predominantly you're on your own. You're on your own. You're going to deal with these issues on your own. You're providing your staff with support. You're providing your staff with a HR department. They're able to reach out, right? But when it comes down to you and yourself, you need to ensure that you can be as productive as possible and be able to address these traumas. And it comes down to taking that first step. We've touched on it today, where it's like, take a step back, assess the criteria that are in front of you that are contributing to potential lack of revenue, potential sales, whatever, and reframe, make changes to move forward. A lot of people are afraid of change, especially when you've set something up and you sit there and you think, right, this is brilliant. Oh, it's not selling, right? And you kind of sit there and think, if I change it, I failed my original plan. But that's not the case. It's an evolution of the product, evolution of the service, evolution of the business.
And the funny thing is, when I thought about this on the train on the way to you. When you actually see someone who's in great shape, you're not seeing the end result.
That's right.
You're seeing the journey.
Yeah, that's right.
You're seeing the iteration of their physical fitness and physical development. But we don't look at, I don't know, let's say business sales sometimes in that way. It's a journey.
Yeah, it's a journey, and we don't necessarily see the journeys of people and how they've got there. And I think, for me, the biggest thing is for people to understand that whatever they're going through, they're not the only ones that have ever been through it. And that there's ways and means to get over it. I mean, today we wanted to touch on the subject of sales and revenue generation and stuff like that. And we could have actually sat here and talked about, different strategies to sell and different ways to sell and, this, that, and the other, and not blowing our own trumpet. Me and him between us have got enough experience to turn around and say, right, this is what you can do. But this is not what it's about. What it's about is, you're going to come across situations in your business where you're going to struggle to hit revenue targets and hit sales targets. And it's about having the skills and the tools and the knowledge to be able to turn around and know what to do at that point.
Well, this whole talk has not been to make anyone who's a salesperson who's going to watch this a better salesperson. No. This podcast is going to hopefully give you the knowledge to be able to deal when you are not doing so well and be like, what can I do for myself to ensure my mindset is where it needs to be in order for me to be able to just deal with this situation and not be happy, but accept the situation for what it is, and all you can do is look to improve.
That's it. Adapt, adjust, evolve. That's what you need to be looking at when you're in those situations. And equally, on the flip side of that, when you are generating revenue, and again, I'll describe it again, right? You've created a product or service off your own back, and you've taken it to market, and somebody's bought it, right? I mean, that's amazing. But you're going to be sitting there thinking, right, where's the next one? Where's the next one? Where's the next one? Conditioning, right? Lifetime conditioning. Well, actually take a second, step back, and just look at it for what it truly is. Somebody has felt confident enough in your ability, and your passion has resonated to such an extent that they want to pay you for this. They want to pay you for your services or your product. and we've got to kind of get back into this whole situation of actually, do you know what? I've done something, I've achieved something when something that's happened, and to enjoy that moment. And again, living in the moment, in the present, and having gratitude for where we are right now in our lives is very important. And if we're going through negative situations and we're feeling that, life is a struggle as an entrepreneur, then take the step. The resources are there to take the step. And I read something the other day, right? We don't have to be in a crisis to reach out and take that step. People think that they have to get to an extreme to be able to seek help and look for therapists, training, to work on their physical fitness. Well, actually, if you feel you're struggling and it's just starting, isn't that the best time to, apart from
100%.
prevention, to reach out and say, whoa, okay, look, you know what? I've got this issue here. Let me see if I can find some help, some resource that's going to allow me to overcome that, because there will always be someone that's been through that situation, and I think that's equal. That's so important. So, okay, assess your losses, step back, adapt, adjust, and evolve. Your wins, enjoy them. You've achieved
100%.
something. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I mean, where you are right now, obviously, off the back of, being in that situation with your business partners and taking on that burden of responsibility, that affected you. I know that affected you a lot mentally. You're now running like a massively successful business, which you've just started over the last few months. You're seeing results off the back of it. You've taken it to market. You've sold it. Somebody's bought it. Yeah.
Funny enough, I actually took my own advice and I actually sold it and had the revenue there before I had the actual business itself. And in fact, it was a condition of getting the final order that I had the business. So I literally, within the space of 24 hours, had to set up the business, get up the business insurance and everything behind the scenes quickly. But after I'd kind of sold it, and it's been an absolute journey, but it's very, very rewarding. I'm working with big institutions and trying to help people get a recognised qualification without paying. So it can only be a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, online training has gone through the roof over the last 12 months, and the unfortunate thing about it is a lot of people have had to reskill because of losing jobs and stuff like that. But I don't think there should be any stigma attached to that. I mean, that's actually a really exciting opportunity to be able to go and do what you want to do, or train yourself up to be able to do what you want to do.
I think with the last 15, 18 months, and what that's taught us is that, nothing is kind of certain in terms of like, work life or work perspective. Anyway, it's now is the time, if you're going to do something else, to try and upskill and do something else. Because look, the reality is that over the next few months, with people coming off furlough, we don't know what, ticking time bomb is there. So now is the time to train and be prepared.
I think it's a really good opportunity right now for people to be able to actually do what they really want to do, And I know, look, not everybody's going to have the opportunity to do that. But if you do have the opportunity to do that, I don't think there's a better time than now to say, well, okay, you know what? Reset, hit the reset button and go again. What really impresses me about, especially the mentality in this country, is that over the last 12 months, so many micro businesses have been set up. Yeah. People have been able to find opportunities, and there's so many success stories that out of a pandemic, people have provided products and services that really help people, and they've done really, really well off the back of that. But then again, if people are pushing forward and setting up their own businesses and doing what they want, there's challenges that will come with that, and hopefully we're able to address those challenges and be able to offer support, through their journe.
If you think that with those micro businesses, that these are people that are going to be working on their own, probably at home, and going to be facing similar challenges that I've faced in my life of being self-motivated, becoming a self-starter, and basically working through solutions more than likely on your own, and having only maybe family members to bounce off or friends to bounce off that don't necessarily understand the entrepreneurial journey or the business journey. So now's probably the best time to at least seek that help, seek that advice, seek a resource to help you through that journey.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. John, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate.
Thank you for having me.
It's
been
gone by
quickly.
Much. It's been brilliant.
I think we've covered quite a lot of topics in and around revenue generation and the mindset to have. So, yeah, I mean, just to kind of conclude, preparation is key. Assessing where your situation is and where you're at, being able to seek help and not being afraid and letting ego come in the way to seek help. And I think, again, one of the most important factors is you're not on your own. Everybody's going to be going through these challenges. We can't all have an upward trajectory in our businesses. It's not going to happen. No. Even if you have 12, 18 months at the beginning of your business where it's like bang, 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 you're going to plateau or you're going to take a dip, And I think, being able to have these conversations and talk about, the issues that we've been through personally, I hope it just resonates with people to say, okay, you know what, there is a way out of it. It's not all doom and gloom if you are in those dips. And if you are in a high, just take a second and enjoy it, Just take a second and enjoy it.
Yeah, that's it. Another one to add on to what you said is be present.
Yeah.
Be present in whatever it is that you are doing. Be present in the fact that you're not actually that successful at the moment, but you're not unsuccessful in every part of your life.
Absolutely.
So if you're not doing so well in business that time, you might be being the best father then at that moment, or the best mother, or the best brother, sister, whatever it is it may be. So if that's anything you can take from that, guys. So again, guys, this has been the Leading Minds podcast, episode 2. Again, a big thank you for John coming on the show. We hope you guys enjoy it, and we hope you guys are looking forward to the next episode.